Hi guys, welcome to the channel Talking with Jay Spring. I'm your host Jake, and your video on the channel today. On today's video, I will rank all the MCU movies from the worst to the best on this channel. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you simply do, smash that thumbs up, comment your rankings down below and your opinions on the movies, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for much more on the channel. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video, and let's just get straight into it. Coming in at number 22, we have The Incredible Hulk. Now, a lot of people may disagree with this one because a lot of people see that this is very gunned down a lot, and I'm not trying to gun this down because this is still a good movie on my list. This got a 6 out of 10 for me. Me personally, watching it a second time, I just found this movie hard to watch at times. Now, it had your cool entertaining parts with The Incredible Hulk, obviously cool fights, and it had quite a good storyline, and I really liked Edward Norton playing as Bruce Banner, but there was a lot of flaws with this movie. It was very hard to watch and get through. This is not one of my go-to movies when it comes to the MCU. Coming number 21, guys, it is Iron Man 3. Now, if you'd have asked me a couple months ago, I would have said Iron Man 2 would be in this position because I didn't like Iron Man 2 at all. But I rewatched all these movies and I found that Iron Man 3 is the worst of the trilogy. I really do believe that Robert Downey Jr.'s performance throughout this movie is the only thing that keeps it going and even watchable. Now, I think there's a couple of cool story aspects in this, a couple of obviously CGI and entertaining aspects with the movie, but it's really just Robert Downey Jr. that makes this movie even watchable for me. This is not a film I'd go to watch now and again. This is something I'd watch if it was on the telly randomly. Number 20, guys, is Iron Man 2. Now, Iron Man 2 just edges Iron Man 3. As I said, rewatching these, I have a different opinion on these movies. Now, I see Iron Man 2 with a bunch of potential. It really tried to give you this cool bad guy, obviously in Ivan Vanko, obviously played by Mickey Rourke. I really felt that this guy had a lot of potential. Obviously, it didn't reach the potential, but I can see what it tried to do. And again, the main thing for this film, again, is between Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, their relationship of how Tony's struggling, finding out he's dying and stuff. The storyline yet again and their performances are really the only thing that keeps this movie going. Coming in number 19 is For the Dark World. Now, this will be at the bottom of everybody's list, I'm sure, but for me personally, I see again what it tried to do in this movie. The main things throughout this movie that really kept me going and really enjoyed this movie for making it a good movie is the fact with the scenery, the CGI and stuff like that, as well as Thor and Loki in this movie. They were the main two, as well as some of the plot twists when it comes to Loki, obviously covering himself up as Odin and stuff like that. I really did enjoy that certain aspects of the movie, but then it has its really bad downfalls. Obviously the villain, Christopher Eccleston playing as Malekith the Dark Elf, really bad in terms of the way they showed this guy. At number 18, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, this movie was a big disappointment to me. Now, this is some people's favourite film of the Guardians and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that really rate this movie highly, and I can understand why. But for me personally, I felt that some of the comedy in this movie ruined this movie. I felt the villain was ruined. Kurt Russell, a brilliant actor. Don't know how you felt a villain with that character, the way he was written, as well as Sylvester Stallone was in this movie, an unforgettable character. And just the flow and the tone of the movie was all over the place. You're supposed to feel different emotions at certain things, like you're supposed to be laughing, then feel sad. It was just all over the place, as well as the story and the plot of the story. Now, the Sovereign are supposed to be the bad guys in this, but really Rocket was the bad guy, and it was just so all over the place. They really just mainly felt about the relationship between Star-Lord and his father, and that's why it really lacklustered for me. But there was some great points in this movie, like Yondu, and you have Baby Groot, and Drax as well got a massive improvement, but this film really was a disappointment to me. Next up, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, this got a 7.1 rating for me. This was, again, another disappointing movie for me. Coming from Ant-Man 1, which was a really good milestone for a small guy with a small movie, really done really well. I expected it, again, to push it up, but it just didn't. It really lackluster. Now, it had some great aspects to it. Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, I can't imagine anybody else. The Wasp was so cool in here. You had, obviously, Hank in this film. It was really good. Michael Pena's storytelling, again, and some of the comedy was great. But then most of the comedy was very forced. You had a villain that really wasn't a villain. She had a really good backstory, but she just really wasn't a villain. There was no villain to push through it. It just felt like there was no threat, no consequences to the movie. But again, there was some good and bad aspects with this, and it just felt really a step down from Ant-Man 1. Number 16 is probably a shocker for you guys, is Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, this movie, watching it a second time, I enjoyed it a whole lot more. See a lot more potential with this movie. Now, a lot of the people really dislike, obviously, Quicksilver Quicksilver being killed off in his first movie. Obviously introducing Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, which was great. They obviously killed off Quicksilver in this movie very quickly. I also agree that Quicksilver was killed off so quickly. I also think another thing is Ultron. Ultron has the most potential when it comes to a villain in the MCU, but really bad portrayal when it comes to him. And a lot of this for me really is just the storytelling. The storytelling, it was so overcrowded with multiple stories. It really made the movie just so all over the place when it comes to tone and what we're supposed to feel and what we're supposed to be interested in. It was just too much. Rather than sticking to one story with a couple of subplot points, there was just tons of stories, and it just really overcrowded the movie. We still obviously got to see that cool Avengers action, setting up well for Captain America Civil War, but this movie took a step down from the original Avengers. At number 15 we have Thor. This is the first movie opening up Thor as a character. I think Chris Hemsworth done a great job putting his footmark in the MCU with this great character. This one of the most iconic characters when it comes to the MCU. I think he done a great job. All his relationships with Jane, when it comes to Odin, his father, when it comes to Loki. I think he had a special relationship with everybody, which made the movie flow very well. This is a very memorable story, but still a good movie. Not so great. There was some really big flaws with this movie, which could have really took it up to be one of the best movies in the MCU. And at number 14 we have the last good movie on my list, and it is Captain America the First Avenger. Now if you'd have asked me again this a couple of months ago before reviewing these movies, I would have put Thor ahead of this because Thor is my personal favourite MCU character. But me in general, Captain America in this movie was so good, really well portrayed throughout the movie. It has some great storytelling aspects. Really the story of how he becomes Captain America and this big hero is just so inspiring, and he's obviously the most inspiring MCU character. But obviously when it comes to the Red Skull, I felt he wasn't really given a lot of story behind him. It was barely in the movie, to be honest. Peggy Carter got more time in the movie in this than this Red Skull, which let this movie down, because if we really got a good backstory when it comes to the villain, then we had that automatic face-off between them and it would have been really cool. This movie would definitely be up there with the best of them. At number 13 we have our first totally awesome movie, as we're going into that category now guys, with Doctor Strange, a 7.8 totally awesome rating from me. This definitely was a special movie, really opening up a new world for the MCU. Benedict Cumberbatch coming in with Stephen Strange and Doctor Strange character, really opening up this whole new universe for the MCU. I really admire Benedict Cumberbatch and what he's done throughout his acting career. I absolutely love the guy's work. He was a big part through this movie for me, as well as Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. Really brought this movie along, and there was a bunch of other great side characters in this. And I felt that this opened up obviously the new Infinity Stone with the Time Stone. Obviously the whole universe as a whole was just really well portrayed, and the magic and what this brings differently to the other MCU films. I think that's so great. Obviously the only minor flaws that this really has is Mads Mikkelsen is the main bad guy, and we really don't get to see a lot of him, which really put this movie down a little bit for me, because he was such a cool badass character. I really wanted to see a lot more of him. Obviously, as well as some of the story was and the pacing was quite slow, which sometimes in the first half of the movie was quite hard to follow and enjoy it as much, but it was just storytelling, which is what it needed. But this movie, if it really corrected mainly the bad guy in this movie, with Mads Mikkelsen being in it more, and maybe a backstory and stuff like that, a build up, I think that this movie definitely would be up there, just like Thor and Captain America the First Avenger should. Number 12 we have Ant-Man with a 7.8 totally awesome rating. This movie done a great job introducing itself to the MCU universe. I absolutely love Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I can't imagine anybody else playing as him. I love Michael Douglas as Hank as well. I love Evangeline Lilly as Hope and as the Wasp in the second one. I really love her. And Michael Pena's storytelling, guys. He is a hilarious character in this, and these all come together in this movie and really create something special. Now, this is probably one of the most family-like films out of the MCU. You can sit there with your kids and stuff like that, and there's a lot of mixed aspects with this, which makes it such a fun, entertaining movie and just so enjoyable. And this personally is so underrated in the MCU because of them big films in the MCU. Really just knocks it down, really. And this movie, the only really bad points I can really sit there and say is Darren Cross, the villain in this, transitioning into Yellow Jacket. The way they showed it, the sudden change, how it quickly happened. It was a long building. Bang! It was the evil guy. That really was the only really bad main thing for me, and just how he was a copy of Obadiah Stane from Iron Man. Number 11, we have another 7.8 totally awesome movie, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy, the first movie. This really put a stamp in the MCU universe, bringing a unique style of ultimate comedy, but really cool entertainment as well. I think this really set up a whole new universe, really, in the MCU, up there in space. They just really done a great job with this movie. It was so colourful, so vibrant, so really enjoyable. And this, again, is another family movie. We have Star-Lord, just such a unique character, who's half human and half something else. He's just so cool in this. Chris Pratt does a great job. Gamora was so awesome in this. We have Groot, a tree. How the hell can a tree be so cool, so emotional? Rocket as well, which was so cool. I really love this guy. This is probably my favourite out of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But then, what has its good points has some flaws. And the main flaws for me, really, was obviously everybody's going to go on about Ronan the Accused, obviously the bad guy of this movie. Now, he was very cringeworthy, and I think that's because he was still trying to be a really, like, a normal bad guy, which you'd see in a comic, but this was a comedy movie, so it just seemed out of place, in a way. They should have just done a more comedy villain, and I felt that that would have really executed this movie to a whole new level. Another thing is, I really think that Dave Bautista playing as Drax in this movie, me personally, I didn't like his character in this. I felt that he was held back. He come across very stupid, like very vengeance minded, and it just didn't really appeal to me. But some people have a different opinion on that. They really like his character, and I understand why. At number 10 on my list, our first 8 out of 10 rating, and it is Spider-Man Homecoming. Really, really love this movie. This was so special. We finally get the comic book Spider-Man, which everybody wanted. Now, if you imagine Spider-Man, you think of a teenager going through high school, trying to be that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And I love the fact with this movie, it wiped out the origin story of how he becomes Spider-Man, Uncle Ben dying. This just really continued from Civil War, and it really done a great job introducing Tom Holland as well, who I absolutely love. I'm so excited to see him in the MCU universe. I thought also Marissa Tomei as Aunt May was a great choice, because Aunt May shouldn't be a 90-year-old woman. It should be a proper aunt-looking character, and I think she does a great job in this movie. As well as Jacob Batalon as Ned, I felt he was great. He was fun. He was the best friend I would want through high school for sure. I love the fact that Robert Downey Jr. was in this movie, but he wasn't overused. I think they used him correctly. And I also love the fact that we got such a badass character in the Vulture, really coming through with Michael Keaton really putting his footstamp in the MCU, doing a great job. But then again, there was some bad points in this movie. That sometimes the pacing again in this movie can drag a little, especially that middle part where Peter's at school. We get some action sequences that really don't feel like there's a lot of stake, even though there's a Vulture bad guy. It just feels like Spider-Man, we always knew he was going to actually save the day, and it just felt like a safe movie for a Spider-Man movie introducing itself to the MCU again. Captain Marvel comes in at number 9 on my list. Now, when I originally reviewed it, I gave it an 8.5 because I really generally enjoyed the movie as a whole. But really looking through this list and noticing where I put it in the list, I really need to knock it down a little bit. And I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, the same as Spider-Man Homecoming. I felt this offered a lot of potential and done a lot of great things for the character of Captain Marvel. With Nick Fury as the young side, obviously with the cat, I really enjoyed the cat. I really enjoyed everything as a whole with this movie. There was some flaws when it comes to tone, with storyline, some things, little plot holes and stuff like that. And there was obviously the aspect of, we always knew Captain Marvel yet again was going to save the day, just like Spider-Man. I felt that there was a few things going over it that was wrong with the movie, and there was a lot of other people will put this further down on the list, especially at the bottom of their list, because there's a lot of rumours going around, a lot of things being said, and a lot of things being done, and a lot of opinions going around, which I completely understand. Me personally, going to watch this movie, watching it again yesterday, and actually re-evaluating where I'm going to put it, I think an 8 out of 10 really is the perfect rating for Captain Marvel. Iron Man 1 with an 8 out of 10 comes in at number 8, and this was obviously the start of the MCU. This is such a special movie for what it did. Robert Downey Jr. coming in as Iron Man, smashing it out the park, making me fall in love with the character first off, and enjoying, even in the second and the third movie, they're so low in this list. I just love Robert Downey Jr. because of this movie and what he done. Now, the first half of the movie is slow because of storytelling. That is quite a bad flaw for me. I really find the first half of the movie hard to watch sometimes. But then once he turns into Iron Man, you get that really cool superhero vibe. Him growing as a person, as a hero, and everything. And that iconic scene of him saying, "I am Iron Man," is so memorable. This is definitely one of the best films in the MCU. This started it off so many years ago, and this is still enjoyable to go and watch now. It still has its flaws. Obviously, it's villain can be obviously questioned with Obadiah Stane, and there's other things with this movie that can be questioned. But for what it did at the start of this origin, obviously, of the MCU, we cannot put it low in our list. This definitely has to be up there with the best, and that's why it's at number 8 in my list. Coming at number 7 is another special film in the MCU. It is Black Panther with an 8.1 out of 10. This tried to do something so different, bringing the culture, the historical, the political, ethnical ways through the MCU, bringing it a whole new audience in, really, and done so well with that. Wakanda was bigger and better than ever in this movie. We got a really cool T'Challa as Black Panther in this movie. We got, obviously, the bad guy in Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger, as well as Usaid's Claw. Really enjoyed both of them. Obviously, Okoye, we have Shuri. We have a bunch of great, cool characters in this movie, and it's got such a great, unique storyline for that culture, for that side of things. It was just so enjoyable. Now, there was some flaws, obviously, being that T'Challa could come off a bit, obviously, bland in some parts of the movie. We also got the CGI and special effects in some things could have been tweaked, as well as Killmonger just wasn't on screen enough as a villain. It was on like one scene in the beginning and then suddenly disappears. And obviously Usaid's Claw, in my opinion, got killed off too quickly. I felt he was the majority more like a villain than Killmonger. Killmonger was just vengeance driven because obviously certain circumstances. But Usaid's Claw was a proper bad guy, and I think they killed him off too quickly in this movie. They could have saved it to the end of the movie or in another movie. But that's just my opinion. But this movie done so much of so good, and was even nominated for so many awards. It's unbelievable. This just done so well, and this is definitely a film I could sit there and watch over and over again. One of my personal favourites comes in at number 6, and it is Thor Ragnarok, the best Thor movie definitely of the trilogy. It brings comedy through with Thor as a character expanding and really trying something different in this movie, and it really paid off. We get a really cool character in Thor coming through, and this film just basically done what Captain America Winter Soldier done for Captain America. This just elevated the Thor franchise to a whole new level. Now I'm definitely looking forward to hopefully a new Thor movie coming out in the future. I think this was obviously fun and entertaining. You got a great set of characters and a definite great villain in Hela. One of the best villains so far in the MCU by far. Thor's sister destroying the hammer in this movie was badass. Tom Hiddleston, Mark Ruffalo was great in this movie. I really enjoyed Idris Elba playing as Heimdall in this movie. Korg coming through as a cool unique character. You just got a great overall movie in this. This was fun. This was different of what you would expect from a Thor movie. And yet, in general, there was only a few bad points with this movie. Sometimes there was just too many jokes where you're laughing, you have to get over it and then laugh again. That was the only thing really. And hell, really, she basically stepped up, made a statement in this movie, destroying Thor's hammer and destroying people, and then suddenly disappears and we barely see her. And when she is on screen, all she's talking about is her backstory, and sometimes that can really find the film quite, it's quite bland and quite boring in some aspects to some people, which affects the pacing as well of the movie. But for me as a whole, this is by far one of the best movies in the MCU. This is a special film on many, many people's list. This is Captain America The Winter Soldier with an 8.3. The same as Thor Ragnarok. I really, absolutely love this movie. I put this ahead of Thor Ragnarok because I feel like this done more for Captain America than Thor Ragnarok done for Thor, just about. I really think that this extended Captain America's franchise to a whole new level, and I really, really enjoyed everything near enough about this movie, really. The only thing I want to point out bad about this movie is the Zolar scene with the computer, the whole Zolar putting himself in a computer, and it was just a distraction for Captain America, and it just felt pointless. And sometimes the film, I just feel like the film shouldn't have been called The Winter Soldier, Captain America The Winter Soldier. It should have been more about Hydra and the Shield, the title, I think, because it was more based around that. Winter Soldier was definitely in it, but he wasn't in it as much, and it wasn't mainly about the Winter Soldier. But definitely I have to give some praise to this movie. Now, we got some great performances when it comes to Frank Grillo as Crossbones. We got Robert Redford, really plays great as Alexander Pierce in this movie. Samuel L. Jackson, as always, is great. We got the Winter Soldier, guys. The Winter Soldier made this film elevate to a whole new level. Everybody really went to see Bucky back. obviously after being killed. Really enjoyable reboot for him, and obviously we have Anthony Mackie being in this movie, really well introduced as Falcon in this movie, as well as Chris Evans, obviously always as Captain America, takes from the first movie, brings in this whole new side of him in the second movie. So enjoyable, the whole cast done so well in this movie. This really had some really good humour as well in it. The storyline was so well thought out and planned. The direction from the Russo brothers, this was just an epic movie, and definitely is going to be up there with the best. Coming in number 4, guys, we have The Avengers. Now, this film started off something special. I give this an 8.5 out of 10 for a special reason, because this is such a special movie. Now, this obviously brings all the characters which was built from the first phase all together in a movie. So you have obviously Hawkeye, you have Scarlet, you have Black Widow, sorry, you have obviously Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the Hulk. They all come together and form a group to save the world and mankind as we know it. And this was just such a simple storyline, with Loki as the bad guy, bringing loads of other things from the sky and pretty much wanting to take everything over. It's such a simple story, but so comic book like, and it just felt so good seeing all these superheroes on the screen at the same time. Obviously, as we know, as we go through, more and more superheroes, more and more people on the screen as we go along, and I felt like this movie done something different than what any other movie's done. Obviously, Iron Man put the foot stomp in the MCU, but this movie really elevated the MCU as a whole universe, because now we can see all these heroes together. They've got their own friendly relationships and enemy relationships, love relationships and stuff like that. This just creates a whole new drama, a whole new lot of entertainment and storylines going forward in the MCU. Coming in number 3, guys, this is a special one with Captain America Civil War. This got an 8.8 out of 10 from me. Really, really, really love this movie and everything about this movie. The marketing of how they made you choose a side, the build up, literally the trailers dropping and everything. I remember this movie more than any other movie because the hype around this movie was just so unbelievable. Now, the Russos know how to market a movie, know how to direct a movie, everything just seems so great. I remember going in thinking, oh, is this person going to show up? Oh, is this person going to show up? Because they teased it was going to be team versus team. You expected people to show up. Coming from Age of Ultron, which was a struggle, and really pushing it up into a whole new world. And it actually felt like a Captain America movie, even though all the Avengers were on screen, which I think the Russos done a great job, because this can easily be classed as another Avengers movie, but this felt like a Captain America movie because it was mainly about him and Bucky and Iron Man. They were the 3 main ones, of course. Obviously, you had all the other Avengers involved, but this was mainly them 3, and the storyline portrayed of how the devastation you're feeling for each character, and the way you understand each character in a way where they've got good, you can understand the good side of them and the bad side of them, and why they're doing what they're doing and why they feel what they feel. It's just unbelievable storytelling and directing. Now, the only thing in this which I could pick out as a bad thing was Zemo, the bad guy. And it's not because he was a bad guy, it's just the fact that they really tried to portray that he's the one that split the Avengers. But the Avengers were already cracking. There was already a crack in the glass, and they was already splitting as a group, slowly but surely. But he just made the final tap, which made the glass smash. Avengers Infinity War comes in at number 2 with a 9 out of 10. Such a big rating for such a big movie. The Russo brothers smashed it yet again with a storyline which the world wouldn't expect would happen. No one expected half the universe to be turned to dust by THANOS, the evil villain in this movie, which again, Josh Brolin, a massive performance with a massive villain in the MCU. By far the best so far we've seen. Looking forward to seeing more further on what they do the MCU when it comes to villains. But Thanos and Gamora's relationship was portrayed well in this. You had Thor, Groot and Rocket, which was such a great trio in this. You got obviously the Captain Americas with Black Panther, Black Widow and Bucky, and you had so much going on in this movie. So much wars were going on. Obviously it was all about survival. Thanos was coming to get the Infinity Stones, and just everything came through exceptionally well. And a lot of this is to do with the marketing, the way the Russos directed. So some of the characters and the actors didn't even know what was going on. They just performed their parts. They couldn't see what was happening on the script. They just know how to make a movie. And the Guardians of the Galaxy coming through in this movie done great. Tom Holland as well with Robert Downey Jr. were absolutely outstanding in this movie. Just everything goes well with this movie. Now, the only thing I have had bad with this movie was that some of the characters didn't get the spotlight in this movie. Some characters were outshined by the main characters, and that was for a reason, which we find out in Avengers Endgame, and we find out why they do it at the end of the movie. And I know it's not such a really bad point, but it's still a bad point because I expected going into this movie to see a lot more of certain characters. But still, overall, this movie is pretty exceptional in my personal opinion. I absolutely love this movie, and it's just unfortunate to miss out on the top spot because of how good the first movie is. Avengers Endgame. Now, this is just my opinion. A lot of people disagree. There was a lot of flaws. Some people didn't like certain aspects of the movie. I'm not going to spoil it in this video, don't worry, because I know Monday's a day which we can spoil things, and obviously, if you want to check out the spoilers, there's a spoiler review which you can check out on the channel, as well as a non-spoiler review on the channel as well. You can check out, as well as all the other films have got reviews as well. You can check out and enjoy them. But yeah, guys, Avengers Endgame, the biggest built movie of the year. It's obviously the top grossing movie. So actually, at the moment, trying to currently override Avatar as the top grossing movie, which is outstanding. And how many people have enjoyed this movie? I gave this a 9.5 out of 10. Just under a 10, of course. This was the finale of the story in the MCU universe that we needed. And they just produced everything near enough which everybody wanted. They really done everything to perfection. Now, I'm not going to give away any spoilers as I mentioned, but everybody got a certain aspect in this movie. Now, there's some awesome battles. You obviously got your drama and tension. The main thing with this movie, as I said, is fan appreciation. What they did, they give the fans what they wanted. And there was so many emotions going into this movie, and so many emotions coming out of this movie. Just unbelievable. And just as a whole, the only things really wrong with this movie I'm going to point out was there was some slow paced moments which didn't bother me, but it bothered some other people, which I had to mention in my reviews. And some characters were this was the main thing for me, some characters were portrayed differently and can make people feel offended in a way because of how that character was portrayed. There was one character in the movie for me which I was like, why did you do that for so long? It was overused and it just felt not needed in a way. But they tried to do a different angle, and I can appreciate it, and I still came out enjoying the movie, absolutely loving the movie. It is definitely, in my opinion, the best MCU movie because of what they did, what they gave in this movie in 3 hours. And it didn't feel like a 3-hour movie. This felt like just like an Infinity War 2.5 hours movie. And I just appreciate everything the Russos have done. I'm hoping they do another movie. But guys, as a whole, that has been my ranking video, the worst of the best of all 22 movies in the MCU. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the thumbs up, comment your ratings and rankings and stuff down below, and get into a conversation in the comments section. Don't forget, if you're new here, subscribe and hit that bell for much, much more. You're not going to be disappointed with the stuff we've got coming up on the channel and the stuff already on the channel. Without further ado, guys, I've been me, you've been you, and I'll see you next time on Talking with Jay Springer.